Hi everyone, welcome back to the Civrays InMoov. It's been quite a busy month in April. We've exceeded over 100,000 views now across all the content on the channel. And thanks to you guys, we finally hit that 1,000 subscriber mark. So really pleased with that. Really big thank you to everyone that has helped support the channel. In the last video we built the left foot, and I didn't just want to sort of do a repeat of that building the right foot. I wanted to mix things up a little bit. So I thought we'd take a look at the process of getting the parts ready for printing, because we normally skip that step. So let's take a quick look at that before we start building the right foot. So I've had quite a few comments of people asking me where they can get the 3D printed parts from, and this is the website you want to go to, inmove.fr. And then when you're there, you want to go to the gallery and then the InMoov STL parts library. We're interested in the foot, so we want to go to legs, ankle, and then we want to download ankh back foot. Ankh holder, ankh middle foot, ankh toes bolt, ankh toes foot, ankle base, ankle down, ankh part, and foot bolt holder. That's everything we need for the right foot. All the rest of these are for the left foot, which we've already done, so we don't need those. So the next step is to convert these STL files into G-code that we can load into the printer, and we do that via a process called slicing. And for that I'm using Ultimaker Cura. So if we open the first file, we start with the one at the top, ankh back foot. We can zoom in to get a better look. And if we click on the part, it brings it into the center of the screen. We can rotate the part around and take a look underneath, and you can see these red areas under here are the areas that need or potentially need support. So I'm particularly looking at this area here, because the main red area we can see is going to sit on the base. But this area in here, I still don't think we need support. I think that bridging will work for that. So if we take a look at some of the settings, I'm using the standard quality 0.2mm layer height. So you can see I've got the layer height here set to 0.2mm. I've got the wall line count set to 3. And the top and bottom thickness set to 0.8. The next thing we're going to look at is the infill density. I've got that set to 20%. You can actually change the pattern of the infill. I've got mine set to cubic. The print speed I've got at 50 millimeters per second. And then we have the option of support or not. I don't think this part needs it. So I'm going to turn that off. You can see whenever you change any of the settings, it re-slices the part. And then the last thing I just want to mention is the build plate adhesion. You get a few options. I'm going with brim, but if we have a look in here, after all brim, I'm not going to go into them. The one I generally always use is the brim. We'll see that in a second when we see the slicing. And you can set the width of the brim, so I've set that to 4mm. So if we close these settings, and then we can click preview, and here we can actually look at the individual layers that it's created. So we take it right down to the bottom, right down to the first layer. Now you can see the blue area around here is the brim. Blue is generally support material. Yellow is generally horizontal layers, and then red for vertical layers, or vertical edges, whatever you want to call it. So we can gradually sort of take the layers up. We can see how the part would build up as it gets printed out. And it's right about this point here. We can see where that bridging will happen, where we thought we might need support. This area here, you can see there's a gap. And then as we go up just one more layer, then you can see it'll need to bridge across that gap. So what bridging means is the print head will just move quickly across that area, and it'll be so fast that it won't have time to sag. The plastic will set hard before it's had a chance to sag down. So that should be absolutely fine. You see probably a little bit of bridging across the top of those holes there. Again, they should be fine. So I don't think we need support at all for this. So I'm happy with that. So we'll save that to file. So we save that as what we call a G-code file. So if we go to edit, we can clear the build plate. So it just removes the part so we can start with the next one. So I'll open the next file. So we've done ank back foot, so the next one is ank holder. Now this part looks really simple. You can see we're already in preview mode. Let's go back to prepare mode. Not that we need to, but we can just take a look at the model. See, the only red bit is the bottom bit that's going to be sitting on the build plate, so that's fine. And we can look at the layers, but not much going on there. So we're happy with that one, so we'll save that one as well. And again, we'll just clear the build plate, ready to start with the next one. So the next one will be ankle base. Again, it looks like a pretty simple part. And the only red layer there is the bottom, so that should be fine. Can preview that. I always like to preview them just for my own sanity, really, just to have a quick check. But that looks absolutely fine. So we'll save that. Again, we'll clear the build plate. Open the next file. So where are we now? Ankle down will be the next one. Now I believe this one does need support. So we take a look underneath. It's a little tricky to see, but it's this red area here which is the main problem. And around all of it, really. The top bit is red as well. I'm not quite sure if that needs it, but that bottom bit definitely does. This bit here definitely needs support. So if we take it into preview mode, bear in mind support is turned off at the moment. What you can see is when you get to this point here, there's nothing, and then suddenly you've got like a whole layer and there's nothing underneath it. So that will, you can't bridge that. That will definitely sag down. That will probably just completely fall apart as we try printing that. So we do need support for this, and that's what the InMoov site tells us, that we need support. So we turn on generate support. Now we can actually choose where we want the support. We get a little bit of control over where we want the support. And there are a lot of settings hidden in Cura. You can turn on a lot more stuff if you want to get a lot more complicated. But I have got support placement turned on, so we can select that. And I think for this part, I'm just going to go with everywhere. So I want support everywhere where it's required. You have got that support overhang angle. I generally leave that at 45 degrees. So if we take another look at the preview, now you can see that blue area in the middle, that's the support. So that's the support it's going to create. So you can see that when that yellow layer goes in, it's basically got something to sit on top of. That will support it and stop it from sagging down. So that should work well. We've made one on the previous foot, so we're pretty confident about what we need to do with these parts. Might be a little overkill to do support everywhere, but we know that that'll work. So that's that one. Again, we'll clear the build plate. We'll open the next file. Getting there now. Ankh middle foot will be the next one. Okay, this is probably the trickiest one to print. I think it's also the biggest or the longest time, mainly because of the support. But so if we take a quick look at the model, you can see it's actually got some support built into the model. So obviously Gaël has given this some consideration, and he's decided to build some of the support into the model. I'm not sure that that's required really if we're going to be using support anyway. I did actually try printing this part without support at all. I just didn't have any success with it. So we will need to turn support on. And if you look underneath, any of the red parts are where it's saying that it needs support. So you can see there's in particular some areas here under the O's and at the bottom of the V. And there's some red area up the top here and this area here. Not sure if those top bits really need it. It's that bit there looks like potentially it does. But like I said, I did try without support and had some problems, so I'm going to turn support on. But what I'm going to experiment with this time, so with the current settings, it's telling us it's going to take a printing time of 19 hours and 14 minutes. And if we play around with these settings, we change the support from everywhere to just touching the build plate, and it will reslice it again. And now if we look at the printing time, it's now saying 18 hours and 20 minutes. So it's roughly 1 hour less if we say support that's just touching the build plate. So if we take a preview of that. So it's only going to add support when the support is actually attached to the bottom, the build plate, the flat plate that we're printing onto. Now I noticed it's putting quite a lot of brim down in this area here, not just around the outside of the part. I'm not quite sure why it's doing that, but it turned out to be really helpful, because these little parts here, when I tried printing without support and they were straight onto the build plate, they just kept peeling up. And that's really why I couldn't print this part without support, because they just fell off. So you can see how it's going to build up. There is actually no support underneath those V's. I'm guessing they are less than 45 degrees, which was our limit, so that should be fine. Then this is the support. It's building up here and a bit here and a little bit here out to the side of the part. Notice there's no support on that area there because it's not touching the build plate. And that should grow up like that. So There's a little bit of support up the side there. That's just to support that hole, the top of that hole. Probably not really required. As you see, the part grows up. Notice there's no support at the top. So we'll save that. We'll move on to the next part. So which is called anchor part. This is actually a pretty straightforward part. It looks complicated, but it's not really. If you look underneath, there's a little bit of red area at the top again, but I don't think that's needed. And perhaps a little area there, but again, I think bridging will be fine with that. So this should be pretty simple and straightforward to print. I'm going to turn the support off because I don't believe we need it. And as always, I'll preview the part. Just take a quick look at the layers. That's interesting there. I didn't notice that, but it looks like it's going to need some bridging there, right at that point there. This area here. It's quite a large span this time, but I think it'll be okay. I didn't have a problem on the previous part, so I'm sure that'll bridge fine. That's why it's always good to preview. You can see a bit more detail of how it's going to grow as it prints. Yeah, it's interesting, but that should be fine. Okay, we'll save that one. Clear the build plate. Open the next part. This is going to be anchor toes bolt. Now this is trickier than it looks because it's quite unstable. As you get printing towards the top of that bolt, the thing just wants to fall over. So it's really important to get a good brim on this and a good first layer to secure it to the build plate. It will work. It is tricky though. So the red areas are just at the bottom there. There is a little bit of red inside there, but again, I think bridging will be fine. There's a little bit of red at the top as well, but I didn't have a problem with that, so I don't think we need support. See the brim at the bottom. Yeah, this area at the top looks like it might need a little bit of support, but I don't think it does. And I didn't use support before. Yeah, I'm sure that will be fine. It's a pretty straightforward part. It's just a bit unstable because it's so tall and so thin. We'll save that one. Clear the build plate, open the next file, anchor toes foot, we're nearly done. Look underneath again, generally the red area is on the build plate, so that's fine. These areas here, I think this is the reason why Gaël has designed these holes as like a teardrop shape to avoid the need for support inside those holes. Not sure that you would need it anyway, to be honest, but by designing it like that, he's ensured that we definitely don't need support. He generally tries to design the parts so that you don't need support, so he has put a lot of thought into these parts. This is pretty straightforward. It's a pretty solid part, really. It just grows up with the infill on it. And then we've just got a couple of holes here, large holes, that run all the way through the part. So yeah, that should be fine. Quite a bit of contouring on the top, but yeah, absolutely fine. Save that. I think we've got just one left. foot bolt holder. It's the last part. And again, another really easy part, pretty simple. You might get away without a brim on some of these parts. I always put the brim on. I just think it's safer just to have it. The only red area is on the bottom, so no support required. It's a pretty straightforward shape. Yeah, so that'll be straightforward. So hopefully that's given you some kind of an idea of the process that I go through before I can actually print the parts out. We have to download them, we have to load them into Cura and do this process which we call slicing. There are a few settings you can play around with, but the settings I showed you at the beginning are generally what I use for nearly all the parts. Gives you the time here, it gives you the time, it gives you the weight of the part and the length of filament required. The weight is quite handy because you buy the rolls of filament in 1 kilogram spools, and I worked out that all the parts for both feet came to about 1 kilogram. So you can add up all the weights and work out how much filament you need. So I've run into the same problem that I always do. I've run out of filament. We were using this Iono filament, which seems to be an Amazon brand, and I went to order another roll because I'm pretty much out of it, and it looks like it's discontinued. It looks like they don't do it anymore. So I'm not really sure what to do. I can't see the point of really ordering another roll of white when I've got 4 different rolls here of it, and one of them is pretty much full. It seems a little bit pointless ordering more white plastic right now. I've only got one part of the foot left to do. I think the closest of these 3 other colours here that I've got, because I've got 4 here and they're all different shades of white. I think the closest one is this one here. But there's not that much of it on there, so I don't know if there's going to be enough to finish the foot. So I think what I'm going to do, a little bit risky, but I'm going to start printing with the remainder of this, and then when this runs out I'm going to start feeding this in, and I'm hoping that the plastic on the 2 rolls is enough to finish the last part, which is the middle foot. Is quite a big part. Okay, well, that didn't really work using a mix of filaments. I think the older filament was a bit tangled up and it seemed to snag and snapped halfway through, so we got a failed print. So we are totally out of filament in that particular shade of white anyway. But luckily, George went online and had a quick look on Amazon and found that the Iono filament is actually back in stock. So he ordered some up for us, and next day delivery, here it is. So let's open it up.
Let's open this up now. Here we are. I saved the day, guys.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry.
Oh.
Whoa.
There we go.
Here you are, Dad.
Yeah. I don't think we can put this on the video.
Yes, we can. Don't lie.
There we go. Seems to be the same as the previous one. So let's get this loaded on the printer and get printing. We just need another 18 hours to print the next part. So I made a bit of a mix up with the screws last time. So what I've done this time, I laid out all the screws that we're going to need for the whole foot. We've got number 10 screws here, number 10 by 1/2 inch. They're going to be used for the bolt holder that's down inside the foot. It's got some large holes on those, so we're going to have to use some quite thick screws. And then we've got number 8 screws here. We've got the 3 that are 3/4 inch long to go in the top of the foot here. And then the one that's slightly longer at the back here, that's this one here, the 1 inch screw. And then we've got some 1.5 inch screws. They're the ones that run through the foot there. And then we got the number 6 screws, and they're all used on the ankle. We've got 4 at 1/2 inch long, and they're for the bolt holder. 2 here, 2 here, and then we've got 3 that are 3/4 inch long, and they're used in the ankle here, 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 and here. So that's all the screws that we need. So I'll very quickly go over all the parts and then we'll start cleaning them up. We've got the main foot here, the back of the foot, the middle of the foot, and the toes. We've got the bolt here that runs through the toes there to give sort of the hinge on the toes. We've got a couple of bolt holders. We saw these last time. Ankle base, I believe this is called. Ankle part, sort of the very bottom part of the leg, just attaches to the top of the ankle. Ankle down, and I can't actually remember the name of this part, so yeah, it should be pretty obvious what that is. I just can't remember the name of it. These are all the parts we need, so first thing I'm going to do is clean them up. Same as before, 2 of the parts have got support, so let's start with those and clean those off. That's this part here, got support in here, and ankle down here, the support in there. This is exactly the same as last time. This is all support in here. But I did make just a little tweak on this one this time. Some of the support has actually fallen out already. It was in here. It just sat in there when it was printed, and then when I lifted it up, coming out of the printer, it just literally came out. So that was quite nice. It's going to make life a lot easier. I actually set the support so that it's only there's a setting in the slicer which we looked at earlier, so that we only put support that was actually touching the base, and that meant that we didn't get any support material in this word InMoov. Now it came out quite good actually. It's just a little bit just on the bottom of these O's that doesn't quite look perfect. The camera's not quite showing it up, but yeah, so there's nothing to clean out of there, and I'm pretty happy with that. There's also no support up here this time, so we're not going to run into that issue I had with the bolt when I had a little bit of plastic in here that wasn't cleaned off properly. There's no support in here at all. So it's just this bit in here that we've got to clean out. So that was considerably easier than last time. It really just fell out in here. There was nothing behind this pillar this time, because that's not touching the base presumably. So yeah, that was much easier. I don't know if I quite got it all. It's a little bit to clean up there, I think. So we just pop this bit down here, it just falls in. Hole goes towards the back of the heel. So these are the 10 by 1/2 inch screws. I'm not going to over tighten them. Now, if I remember rightly, last time when we try and join the middle foot on, I think these screws slightly get in the way. So we might have to file a little bit out of here somewhere. Yeah, I think it's this corner here. It's the little bit where the slope is on the foot, just on the inside of it. Just need to file a little bit that way, just to clear this screw here. So I'm starting with 4. And then we will work up to 4.5 in a minute. Let's go to 4.5. Just clean it up a bit. I did find my knife. So these are the 8 by 1.5 inch screws. Really long screws, seems to take forever. You should feel once you reach the end, so don't over tighten. One through here. Last one down here, if I remember rightly, it's a little tricky to get in there because my fingers are too big to fit down that hole. I think last time we used a pair of pliers just to try and drop the screw down into the hole. Oh, not quite. There we go. Now, as before, there's a little bit of shrinkage on this part, so it's not quite lining up in this point here. I think it might be slightly worse than last time, but I'm not too worried about it. I do seem to have a ever so slight gap in here this time. The screw hasn't closed it up. The screw's kind of back here. It really needed to be up here to close that up. But once we come to paint it, I can just fill that, sand it over and paint the thing, it'll be fine. Yeah, not quite sure why that's not quite as clean as the last foot. Anyway, the next thing is the toes. So we'll need to just clean off this brim. George is at the door. You coming in, George? Going to talk on the video? Say hi, guys. No? So I'm going to run the 8mm drill through here. Well, actually, pretty pointless because that just fell in there. It's not really doing anything. And also through here. Now, the drill is not quite long enough to reach down into the next hole. Just goes in there. I could probably loosen it in the chuck and extend it a little. Wouldn't normally do that, but just gives us that. Yeah, we could just reach through there now. Just doing that because on the last foot, the most difficult thing was getting the bolt through. Now, I have sanded this. I filed this bolt and sanded it, so it's not straight off the printer. It's certainly not as bad as the first one. It's a little tight. Let's have a go. I did also sand in here and in this side and on the toes, this side and this side. I didn't do it much, and it is still a little tight as it goes in there, but as this is not really going to be a working foot, I don't think it really matters if it's a little tight. I can probably just push that down there. Similar to before, that doesn't want to go through the last hole. There we go. So that was actually a lot easier than the last one. So then we want the little clip, and that should just push in there. Might need a pair of pliers just to hold that. My fingers are a little fat. There we go. Doesn't really do much. The idea is to stop the bolt falling out, but it's not really going to fall out. So there's the foot. Now, I think last time I sanded the top of this a little bit, and it does again feel a little proud, so I think I'll do the same. Say sand, I think I used a file. Okay. So I think this part is called ink base, I think. I'm not sure. Yeah, slightly awkward shapes to work with. There's danger of using the knife. I slipped and I've scratched it. It's barely noticeable though. I will switch to the file. I think it's a little safer. I prefer the knife, but it's a little awkward shape. I like to just finish it with a little bit of sandpaper. Okay, and again we want these to be clearance holes, so they want to be 4.5mm. They do look fairly big, so I'll probably just go straight in at 4.5mm. Don't forget there is one at the back. Okay, so then that goes on there. So these are the 8 by 3/4 inch screws. Just get them in and then we'll tighten them. Again, could use the power screwdriver, but I like to be careful with these parts. They took a long time to print, I don't want to break them. Now the one in the back is slightly longer. For that one I'm using an 8 by 1 inch screw. Let's tighten these ones up. Okay, that's that. Looking nice. So now we need to move on to the ankle. Okay, so this is called ankle part. Let's just clean the brim off. Yeah, although it's messier, I think I do prefer my file. Just makes a lot of dust. So this is where the tibia will join on. That might be the next video, I'm not sure yet. Now I've got to remember how we do this. I think we've got the other bolt holder, and that needs cleaning up. Now the diagram says again the hole goes to the back, and we know that this, I can grab hold of the part, we know that this slot is the front, so hole to the back, and it goes this way up, so it kind of fills in this square hole, this sort of rectangular area that's missing here. So it goes that way around rather than pushing it down into the hole, which I'm not going to do because it's slightly tight. And I think I'm just going to file that just a little bit more. I think we can just screw straight into these. They've got large holes in these bolt holders, but quite small in the part. And rather than drill them out, I'm going to go with the number 6 screws that I used last time. Just going to give that a little file. quickly. Got this part that I can't remember the name of. Tiny bit of clean up, just to clean off that brim. Because it's round, I'm going to use my file. So I could clean up all these parts before I start recording the video, but I'm kind of trying to give you an impression of what's really involved. The parts don't come off the printer nice and clean, do require a little bit of clean-up work. Even if it's just removing brim and a bit of support. Sometimes the corners need a little cleaning up. You don't have to use brim, but it helps the parts stick to the bed. And as usual, I like to finish up with a little bit of sandpaper. It's a funny material, this plastic. When you file it, you can still get little sort of strands of plastic, and I find the sandpaper just cleans them up. Now, I think we push this through. It does turn in there, so it doesn't actually matter how you do it, but it doesn't turn that well. So what I try and do is the holes here want to be in the front of the foot, the same side as this slot here. And we've got the two holes here at the front and the one hole is at the back. So I kind of put it in that way around, if that makes any sense. There's a little mark there, I think that's come from the printing. It's going to be on the underside, so it's not going to matter. So this goes on here, and then we want the number 6 by 3/4 inch screws. Now, I think they do want drilling out to be clearance holes in here. Now the number 6 screws, I believe, are 3.5 millimeters. So I think I actually bought myself a 3.8 millimeter drill bit specifically for making these clearance holes. So we'll use that for the first time. You can drill them out at 4 millimeters, but sort of be a little bit more precise with 3.8. Being a little bit picky there. Should have done that before I put that together, shouldn't I? Okay. Let's put that back in. How did I do that? So that way, I think. There we go. this is just about it, I think. Get these 3 screws in. So there really isn't that much to the assembly. It's really, the main part is printing the parts out. It takes so much time. They go together really well. And this should just push on here. And there we have the second foot, the right foot. Pretty pleased with it. Small gap down there is probably the biggest thing that's bothering me. Other than that, I think it looks pretty good. There we go. Pair of feet for our InMoov. Awesome stuff. So a quick demonstration of a walking InMoov.
Yeah.
Off you go.
Here it goes, guys.
There we go. I think they might be back to front, but yeah, whatever.
What do you mean, Dad?
Well, you got your feet back to front, look.
Oh, sorry, guys.
There you go. Look at that.
So there we go. Good feet. So, yeah, I'm really pleased with those InMoov feet. They look really nice. The walking animation was kind of fun. So, okay, I'm going to let Dad do the final words.
So there, I hope that was a little bit different to the previous video. We looked at the slicing a little bit more this time and the preparation of the parts before the printing. Assembly was nice and quick and easy. So I think next time what we'll do is build the tibias. So they'll sit on top of here, making our legs a little bit taller. And then we can work our way up to the knees and the thighs. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.